Well, hello everyone and welcome to The Weird Man, an exploration of the access of leadership for everyone. This is the 6th episode of Series 3 about the application of the Love SG worldview in leadership and leadership projects. The last episode was part 2 of 3 episodes on resistance in projects or to projects. In that episode, I discussed how resistance is inherent to existence, life, evolution, and art. Resistance creates our life and can be wielded to create a life like a work of art in which the artist consciously or unconsciously applies constraints. We can know what is working because it works. We often can't know what isn't working because it isn't working. We are just left with not working. We can notice resistance and constraint. In resistance and constraint is working and not working. We can notice our life like a work of art. In this episode, I will discuss how your life can be created, just as you can make a work of art. Firstly, let's look at how resistance exists for you. Do this exercise as I talk you through it. Be comfortable where you are. Sit or lie comfortably. Have your mind at ease. Be with your life like written and drawn on a single sheet of paper. Look at the point it all started. Look how you had experiences from age to age. You may not see all the parts clearly, but sense something all the same. Don't even try to get it clearer. Just create attention for it for a moment, then move on. Either something will come to light, or it won't. There's nothing to do about that. Notice where something shows up for you as something bubbling up, a bodily feeling or an emotion. Notice the bubbling up. It doesn't have to have a reason. Experience your life then and now, without all the story or reasons for your way of being a certain way. Note that from moment to moment you are a certain way, and that way changes. And maybe it changes when you remember or don't remember something from your life. The bubbling up or showing up is artwork, colour, shape, and movement, finding its way around constraints and resistance. Notice how that artwork is. Notice the vigour, the vibrancy, the colour, the shadow, the motions, the flux, the stillness, the sounds, the silence, the power, the darkness, the fullness, the thinness. How does your being in action in various parts of your leadership project be like a work of art? Take a moment to take it all in. Now, sit up and take up a piece of paper and some colour pens. Begin drawing your life with all the artistic characteristics you just saw in your meditation. You can make a drawing for each one of your leadership projects. Go back to the beginning of these instructions for each project. You can expect to have a different drawing for each of your projects. And as you are doing your drawing or sitting noticing the artwork and unfold in your imagination, you will notice where the work is expansive, where it calls forth something flourishing. And you may notice that there are places where the work shows up as something squeezed in or tucked up or dropped away into invisibility, or something just hooked up, stuck somehow. What is the relationship between what is flourishing and what is hooked up or squeezed or fading away? What events and what stories are represented at the places of flowing and flourishing, the places of dampening and darkness, of stillness or calmness, of exuberance or exhaustion? What else shows up for you from the art that is your life? Your life is a complete form. Your life is whole and complete. You will see that the work of art of your life are strands of colour and shape and movement in relationship with each other and flowing from the beginning to now. It exists within the constraints that were there at the beginning and the constraints you took on over life. Now is your leadership projects. You can follow a strand of your artwork from now to then, and the strand and colour and movement and form as it follows the constraints and the resistances applied to it. The beauty of you and your life is right there in those structures of your resistances. And anything you look at that seems doesn't work for you is there. Where is it in that artwork? Where do those strands come from? Look at where those resistances are happening that tie up the work so it doesn't work so well. It's your work of art, and regardless how you feel about the parts, it's a wonderful work. You might get something concerning bubbling up when you look. Remind yourself that you are just looking. The artwork has already been on display. It's your life. There is nothing that you haven't already gotten in place. There is nothing you can change about it. You can change how it looks to you. You might find that there are parts or places in the artwork that you see as just a little hooked up or just a little bit like something's bubbling up. Now, you can't change events of the past. The constraints of an actual event, like my teacher yelled at me and hit me with a ruler, can't be changed. However, our story about it might be the actual resistance in our life. Take a look at the event of the teacher yelled, or some other event you find that you are comfortable to deal with. And now look at all the stories you have from that event. There might be one, there might be a few. She didn't like me, she was a terrible person, school teachers are terrible people, school is a terrible place, she didn't care, they don't care, teachers can't teach anyhow. Look at your artwork. Can you play around a little with the forms and the colours and the movements of your life with the teacher who yelled at you, or whatever event of discomfort you're looking at? Spend only a little time with that. Maybe 5 minutes. Go on to another place in your artwork of life. You can repeat that. Every time you get to a place that calls a pulling out or a bubbling up, take notice of that place for a moment. Work around it a little bit with the form and the colour and the movement, and then move on. You can come back to this exercise every now and then. Only a short while, 15 minutes maybe. We're not trying to create an art exhibition here. You can then focus on your leadership projects. But in doing that, you might find something new showing up for you around your leadership projects. You could either become more masterful at applying constraint to the world of your life. Like colour is a constraint, and form is a constraint, and movement is a constraint. Certainly all good art requires it. And all good art requires resistance and constraint applied purposefully. So you could become masterful at noticing where to release the constraints and resistances. The stories about how you thought other people thought of you and that you began to think of yourself. And new stories about how you could be. And new stories don't need to be nice stories. News stories can be powerful or gentle or enthusiastic or plodding or adventurous or puzzling, etc., etc. You can keep anything you like. You can alter anything you like. Some things you might find disappear. If anything you look at really shakes you up, you don't have to go it alone. Seek out a transformative coach or psychologist for guidance. You, as a work of art, can seem a little disordered in places. Usually this is due to that you are in action in a way that is at odds with your values. Now, being at odds with our values is being inauthentic. We are all often inauthentic. So next time I'm going to talk about how our being inauthentic is quite routine, and that finding a way to inauthenticity, which is an essential characteristic of any leadership, is something you've got to come back with over and over and over. Bye for now.